Hey everybody, Livingston here. Today we're jumping into another fun-filled episode of the Twilight Zone. This time it's Season 3, Episode 7, The Grave. Came out October 26, 1961, and another episode I haven't seen before. But before we get started, let's jump into your comments for last week's episode, The Mirror. Akira Kurosawa says, a legend, Peter Falk Columbo. Yeah, I love Peter Falk. He was always a good little character actor that would show up here and there. This is the first time I've seen him in a Twilight Zone episode, so I thought he did a wonderful job in this role as a Fidel Castro lookalike. But, when he popped up in A Princess Bride, gotta love him in that. I think the last thing I've actually seen him in was a movie called Next. Came out maybe 12, 13, 14 years ago with Nicolas Cage in it. An interesting movie about time and how he can see into the future before things actually happen, so he's very good about predicting what's going to happen, where he can just kind of walk through a field of gunfire and not get hit. But interesting film, go and check it out. I think they kind of made it to be a sequel, have a sequel to it, but it never came to fruition. But I think that was like one of his last roles, Peter Falk. California Hummus says, this episode is pretty underrated, I like it a lot. Yeah, it's not a bad episode. It was probably in the low tier of episodes so far when I've, kind of going through Season 3. I just wasn't drawn to it, but, you never know what you're going to like and dislike in these things. But I just was more into the episodes that came, last week and the week before that and the week before that. I mean, they've had some pretty strong episodes in Season 3 so far. This episode seems in line with Season 2. There were some strong episodes in Season 2, but I think the majority of them kind of felt like this episode, The Mirror, but that's just my opinion. Robert says, I'm 56 and became a fan of The Twilight Zone during reruns of it in the 1980s on cable TV and continues to be my most watched TV series. The Mirror is one of my favorite 20 favorite episodes. You have great reaction channel. Thanks, Robert. I very much appreciate the compliment. And yeah, it's a very strong series. There contains stories. And if you give it time, maybe like 10, 20 years and rewatch it after that, maybe you'll forget some of the details in the story, so it'd be cool to re-watch this when I'm possibly about to hit my 60s. But we've got so many more Twilight Zone episodes to run into going forward, because we still have the 1980s and 90s and 2000s and the most recent one in 2019. So we have a lot of Twilight Zone left ahead of us. Looking forward to it as well. Jonathan Stein says, another great example of the message that tyranny is ultimately self-destructive. Very true indeed. You become tyrannical in any way, your population is going to suddenly start turning on you. Maybe not suddenly, but eventually when they get tired of your crap, they're going to be like, all right, this guy needs to get out. When you have millions of people who are in your country and you're trying to serve them, I just don't understand. I get greed and whatnot, but does anybody not think of the repercussions of what can possibly happen if you push people to their brink? It does happen. Revolutions do happen quite often. And there's some countries that have a lot of power and people have a hard time having to rise up, or they just become so used to the tyrannical government that they just kind of go along with it. There's several ways that communities and people react to being pushed to the brink. CBCW76 says, if you've never seen Bananas, a 1973 film, you'll enjoy that comedy with a hefty dose of parody. It helps to learn a little about the Chicago 7 trial, too. I'll give it a look. They continue on, I'm just discovering this channel. Thanks for doing these great intros to these in a patient method. I find they're usually marathons, crammed hundreds of episodes in the brief time possible. When I'd opt for a return of this slow to a weekly prime time format, simply too much and too little time to digest or enjoy them. Well, I appreciate the compliment. Thank you very much for enjoying the channel. And yeah, we're going to keep on going. I do enjoy a nice marathon from time to time. The only reason why I don't do marathons with the Twilight Zone, because some people like to watch several episodes at a time. I like to have interactions with the community who watch the Twilight Zone and talk about the episodes on their own, by themselves, and kind of go through some trivia and learn about each episode as we go, because a lot of effort and time is put into making these episodes. So let's take a little time and effort to actually go through each episode and learn about each one individually. Thanks for the compliment and comment. Welch says, to skip opening, go to 5 minutes. Well, Welch, I'm sorry you don't like my intros, but it's okay. Gene Everett 33 says tonight's The Grave isn't the best episode ever, but it's a fun little Western vibe story. Plus, my girlfriend Ashley says the girl on it was the first goth girl ever. Okay, well, I guess we're getting ready to watch the first goth girl ever. That's going to be interesting. I'll definitely point that out when I find her. Nene's hubby says, could have been a silly episode if not for the acting talents of Peter Falk. Rod Serling hated totalitarian... I can't ever say this stupid word. Totalitarianism. Okay, close enough. In any form, and as a World War II vet, he knew what happened when tyrants came to power. Assassinating those who helped you into power is pretty much Dictators 101. Also, aside from the obvious Castro comparison, one of the other guys looks like Che Guevara. That's true, they definitely touched on several of these dictators that they had throughout history, mostly in that region near Cuba and whatnot. But yeah, Peter Falk did a wonderful job. I think his intensity really brought a lot to the scenes. And I don't know if he shows up anymore. Let me know comment below if Peter Falk shows up in any of the Twilight Zones going forward. It would be very interesting to know. I love Peter Falk when he shows up in anything, and he just always brought his game. He was actually a very funny guy, too, when you see him on the roasts back in the 70s, the Dean Martin roast. He'd go up there dressed as Columbo in his trench coat and start talking to the audience, and just his timing and his ability to captivate the audience and keep them laughing was very impressive. Well, then let's jump into the show and see what we're getting into.
Your next stop, the Twilight Zone.
Standoff. This guy gonna eat it right off the bat. Not looking good for him.
Pinto! You're covered on all sides!
Uh-oh. No! Oh, he didn't make it.
Still alive. Let's get him into the old jail.
Still alive? I mean, just put him out of his misery at this point. He's full of holes. Man, back then, they had a hard time keeping people alive after they were shot as many times as he was.
He ain't got more than a few minutes left to live, Johnny Rob. You go fetch his pa and sister.
All right, Mother Shed. That's the end of that.
That was quick.
Normally, the old man would be...
Hey, Rod.
We've had the traditional shootout on the street, and the bad man will soon be dead. And shortly, we'll see how he introduces the town and a man named Connie Miller, in particular, to the Twilight Zone.
Ooh, commercial. Yeah, look who it is, Lee Marvin. I think his last movie was Delta Force with Chuck Norris. It was like 85 it came out, which is the same year he passed away.
It's me, Connie. Jason.
What's up?
If you could see down under all that dust, you could see his blood down there. Pinto Sykes. They shot and killed him day before yesterday.
Huh. Was he a friend? Did you know him?
Well, look at what the wind blowed in. Hello, Connie.
His name is Connie. It's a lady's name. Hey, that's Lee Van Cleef. I got a all-star roster in this one.
The blood of Pinto Sykes. Who shot him?
We did. The whole town.
Everybody.
Only 8 of us actually fired, but the whole town was behind it.
We'll have to admit the whole town ain't much of a marksman. Out of 8 shots fired, only one of them hit him. We don't even know who it was. That bullet passed right through him. No one's bragging that they was the one that did it.
Or was he a bad guy? Did he deserve it?
Maybe by now Pinto knows who it was that killed him.
Reckon you're some disappointed, Connie. Being as how you spent so much time trying to...
I wanted the shot.
I could have found him here.
That ain't the way Pinto tells it. He claims you didn't even try to catch up to him.
Hello, Johnny Rob.
Really?
Still big as blabbermouth as ever, I find.
You do spout awful lot, Johnny Rob, but no need to get riled, Connie. But it is a fact that Pinto claimed that on his deathbed.
You talked before he died? What'd he say about me?
I reckon that Connie deserves to hear it all. We got us a new circuit judge now.
Sure recorded it.
A young fella needs
It's one of those court, what do you call them? You know, where just keep up with everybody's dialogue.
how he treats his town like it was his personal property just 'cause he's born and raised. And we tell how we hired you. We ain't had much results. Tells us to grow up and act like men or else leave town and move to where men can protect it. Well, he gets us kind of fired up. We all agree to work as one. We all join in. We take him.
About all there is to tell. Town gunned him down out in the street. That's about all there is.
No, that is not all that there is.
Yeah, what more is there?
Dan Syke. He spent the last few minutes talking to them. He told his pa how sorry he was that he hadn't turned out better. And his pa allowed as to how he turned out right well. Told Ione how he wished she'd marry a fine man and move away.
What'd he say about me?
He got real riled when he mentioned you.
Okay.
He said he waited for you in Albuquerque. He said you ought to be able to catch him now, but that if you ever come anyways close to his grave, he'll reach up and grab you.
Will that actually happen?
I searched all over Albuquerque, every saloon, hotel. He wasn't even in that town long enough to rent himself a room for the night.
Oh. Is this the goth?
Hello, Ione.
Give me a bottle of rye.
Seems your paw is hitting the drinking a mite heavy, Ione.
Yeah, he lost his son. Bad thing.
This ain't for my pa, Mr. Broadley. It's for me. Look what the wind blew in. And how are you?
Fine, just fine. How's yourself?
Just tolerable. He's real sorry. He's been missing you. Even about how Pinto's gonna reach up and grab him.
We told him that, too.
You ought to feel lucky tonight. You know right where he is. All you gotta do is walk up there.
Is he gonna do it? I feel like if he does, he will die. Man, just a little too happy for her brother to be dead. I think she knows something.
That whole Sykes family never was real bright.
Tell me something, Connie. Are you afraid of Pinto's grave?
No, I was never afraid of Pinto when he was alive. And I sure ain't afraid of him now that he's dead.
And I don't believe it.
You might need to be. This is the Twilight Zone.
I ain't armed.
Hold it now, Connie. Simmer down. Let's not have any bloodshed.
Nobody calls me a coward.
Well, he needs to keep his mouth shut. Come on, Marty McFly. Nobody calls me Yella. Nobody!
Leastwise, I don't think you're afraid of anybody in this room, especially not me.
I'll play a song, though.
But dogs and kids, they like me. They follow me around all the time.
Okay.
And no, sir, I don't think there's anybody afraid of me.
Boy, shut up.
But what I was going to say before you hit me and hurt me was, I'll bet, I'm not accusing you, understand, but I'll bet that you won't call on Pinto tonight.
Why don't you shut up before you really get hurt?
Now, I'll bet you won't walk out of here at midnight sharp and visit Pinto's grave. I'll bet you this $20 gold piece that took me 20 weeks to save that you won't do what I just said.
Didn't he play Sheriff Roscoe? I'm trying to remember the guy's name. Is it Best? James Best? I think I'm right.
Well, I just happen to have one, too, and it just covers yours.
Well, I guess in a little while that one of us will have $40 instead of 20.
That's right. Are you saying that you want to bet against me, too, Steinhardt?
Betting's my business, Connie. You didn't say that. I just said I'd bet $20 you don't go.
There. Keep an eye on the bets, Ira. Sure, Connie.
We gonna have any witnesses?
I can't afford to bet tonight. Steinhardt just took all I can afford to lose.
Well, Steinhardt hadn't taken all your money. Whose side would you be on?
I reckon I'd bet again you, Connie.
What's wrong with you?
You can draw your gun real fast, Connie. We seen you. But out in that graveyard, that gun ain't gonna be worth a copper cent.
Since this is a job you're gonna have to do by yourself, how are we gonna be sure that you've done it?
You saying you don't trust me, Steinhardt?
You call me a liar?
And in that case, I guess you're gonna have to go along and keep me company so you can protect your own interest.
I have another way. Give me your Bowie knife, Ira.
What's that for?
A challenge.
When you arrive at your destination, simply stick it into the earth of the grave. If we see it within 5 feet of the fresh earth, we'll concede the wager.
Ain't nobody gonna go up there and steal that knife once you've planted it.
Challenge accepted.
I won't be long.
Oh, here we are. Will he die? Will he live? And is this his sister?
Connie,
She been drinking?
come to see Pinto?
Maybe.
You're braver than I thought. Maybe a good bell to Red Eye'll make it all easier.
I don't get my nerve out of a bottle I own.
Good for you.
You go on up there and see Pinto. He's waiting for you.
We're gonna see him? Is he gonna like come to life and they're gonna have a showdown or something? Whoa! Just a door. Alright. Moment of truth. Ow. Okay, what's going on? Oh, he really wanted to stab it in. What'd he die? They warned him.
I don't understand it. It's morning. He ain't back yet.
Not likely. His horse and gear are still here.
I just can't help feeling somehow I got a man killed.
Deep down, we all know that the dead can't really hurt nobody.
I suspect him dead now.
Morning.
She's happy.
What are you doing with that plate?
This is his. Used to eat out of it when he was a little boy. I'm going to put it on his grave.
I'll go with you. I gotta see what happened out there.
Okay.
Reckon we can't spend the rest of our days being afraid of a dead man. I'll come with you.
Oh, power in numbers.
I know that I got a man killed.
Cut it out, Johnny Rob. You're acting like a baby.
It's not your fault, boy. Whole story's right there. Look at him. He came up here. He had more courage than I thought. There's his knee prints. He knelt by the grave. He pulled his knife from his belt and plunged it into the grave. Being dark, he didn't notice he put his knife through his own coattail, pinioning it to the grave. Then he started to rot.
Okay.
As he did so, perhaps he was halfway up, he felt a sudden tug. The knife holding his coattail. But in his own mind, Pinto reached out and grabbed it. His heart gave way, that's all.
Gave himself a heart attack from scaring himself to death. What a detective.
There you are, Bud. So you think Connie's death was an accident? How did his coattail get over the grave?
For some reason or other, he had it unbuttoned. The wind must have done the rest.
The south. Same as now. I'm standing in the same spot Connie was. Is the wind blowing it across the grave?
And for any further research, check under G for Ghosts in the Twilight Zone.
Huh. Well, I guess that was the question at the very end. Was it the ghost of the guy who was in the grave that killed him, or was it his knife that just scared him to death? How did his coat whip around that way? I don't know. It was actually kind of a silly ending, I think. I mean, it wasn't really one of the strongest episodes so far. Well, I guess that's the question at the very end of this. Was it the ghost of the guy who killed him, or was it actually the breeze and him scaring himself to death that did it? I'm not sure. I mean, really, in the end, it was kind of a silly ending, in my honest opinion. But when it came to the story itself, they let you know right from the beginning that if you go up there, up to that cemetery, and do anything around that grave, you're going to die. I mean, they already had it set in your mind that this guy was going to die, so there was no twist there. And at the very end, it was just kind of shoehorned in like, hey, was it the ghost of the guy, or did he just stab his knife and that's how he ended up killing himself by scaring himself to death? Either way, who knows? I'm not sure what happened, but I didn't get grabbed by this episode. It was okay. They had a lot of stars in it. I mean, Lee Von Cleef was in it, and it was very interesting to see Lee Marvin in there as well. So, yeah, I mean, for this story, I just thought it could have been better, or just they could have not let us know that if you go up to that cemetery that you're going to die. I don't know, it just kind of took the mystery out of the episode. Let me know, comment below what you think. But let's jump into some trivia and see what it took to get this episode off the ground. Many reviewers have cited that Lee Roston's very short story, The Path Through the Cemetery, as the source of this episode. While the much anthologized tale is probably the immediate source, there are many other available ones, which include the three essential story elements: grave, wager, and knife. The oldest printed version in English to be found dates from 1825, when it appears in the pages of the Terrific Register. The story has been recently reprinted in the compilation Tales from the Terrific Register, Book of Ghosts 2010, pages 107 to 112. The setting is Westminster Abbey, around the year 1735, when the seventh chapel vault has been opened for the admission of the Queen's body. The Queen must be George's second consort, Caroline of Ansbach, who died on the 20th of November 1737, and is the only queen buried in the vault anywhere near the year 1735. The only significant change is that the wielder of the knife survives his ordeal and relates much of the tale in the first person. It should be noted that the Terrific Register was notorious for publishing fiction as fact, and that it was probably a well-known legend by 1825. This episode is based upon a popular urban legend, which we just read. Connie Miller's hat is called a campaign hat, which can be traced back to the mid-19th century, although made by many manufacturers. Stetson was a major producer of these hats. Soldiers found the middle crease of these hats to be impractical since it accumulated rainwater, and they started pushing up the center so it would shed off. Sometime in 1911, the Army adopted this style of hat as 1911 Hat Service M1911 campaign hat. Unofficially, it had several names: Lemon Squeezer, Mountie Hat, Ranger Hat, Drill Instructor Cover, Smokey Bear, the Montana Crease, and several others. Lee Marvin, Strother Marvin, and Lee Von Cleef all appeared in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance 1962, which was released 6 months after this episode was broadcast. In the bar of the late 1800s setting, you can see a stuffed jackalope mounted conspicuously above the back of the bar. This is a possible inside joke among the set crew and highly incongruent in that setting, since the myth of the western jackalope, an alleged and impossible hybrid between a jackrabbit and an antelope, was an urban tale concocted for tourists visiting the West in the 20th century. It was an especially popular joke in post-war mid-century America. Lee Marvin wore the same hat when playing Tim Strawn in Cat Ballou, 1965. Both Lee Marvin and Strother Marvin appeared together in The Great Scout and Cat House Thursday, 1976, originally intended for the second season. On shows that Steinhardt's hypothesis about Connie's death is incorrect when it's seen that the wind blows her cloak away from Pinto's grave, while she stands at the same spot Connie died at. In fact, while Connie stands at the grave before he kneels to plant the Bowie knife, it's seen that his coat is also blowing away from Pinto's grave, not across it. Well, that's it for this episode. Let me know, comment below what you thought of it, and I will go over your comments in next week's episode. Until then, see you later.